Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 105, Friday, August 9th, 2024.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Courtney, and I'm joined as always by the Amazon Annie to my Congo Connie, my lovely co-host, Emily.
Thanks, Courtney, and welcome back, listeners, to the final selection in our Adventureland Attraction Summer Series. This is going to be a fun discussion, and if we are not careful, this episode could go on for Niles and Niles and Niles.
Well, this summer sure has flown by. You and I discussed this with Family Robinson back in June in honor of the treehouse of the same name. Last month, we interviewed author Ken Bruce about his new book, Before the Birds Sang Words, which chronicles the creation of the Tiki Room. We certainly couldn't let the Adventureland Attraction Summer Series go by without addressing the elephant in the bathing pool, the world famous for being world famous Jungle Cruise. Our summer selection this month is Skipper Stories, True Tales from Disneyland's Jungle Cruise by former skipper David John Marley. So we thought this would be a perfect episode for a guest reader to join us. Joining us on this expedition is Allie Ring. Allie is a Chicago-based comedian and podcaster. You can hear her on D Commentaries, a podcast dedicated to watching all Disney Channel original movies in chronological order. As a former Disney College Program cast member, she worked on the Jungle Cruise and as a character attendant and loves all things Disney. Welcome, Allie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So Allie and I met back in 2015 on our college program. This was your second college program.
It was,
so we're going to be
yes.
talking mostly about your first college program time on the Jungle Cruise, but you and I met when we worked in entertainment together. I loved days that friends invited you to come join us around Epcot and Magic Kingdom. Allie took really good care of all of our Disney pal friends.
That's so nice. I loved working in 2015. One, meeting you. Two, working in 2015 as a character attendant, because in 2013, after my first program working at the Jungle Cruise, I said I would never go back. And then there's something about Disney that just hooks you and you go right back 2 years later when you graduate.
What made you want to do the Disney College program? Because Courtney made me want to do it. And then we met together. So what made you want to do the Disney College program? And then you said you went back again. So what pulled you back in?
So I had a friend freshman year, an RA in my building, who was leaving to do his program the spring semester. And when I found out about it, I was like, yep, I'm doing that. I want to do that. But my college didn't let us go as freshmen. So I went as a junior, my first semester junior year. And it was all I could think about all the time. And it saved me, honestly, because I wanted to drop out of college so bad. And my parents were like, no. And so then when I went to Disney, it saved me. And then I stayed in college. So it was great. But it changes your life. It changes the trajectory of your life so much.
Yeah, my mom knew that if I went, I would never come back. So that's why I did it after I graduated, because then I never
yeah,
did
if
come
Disney
back.
was in a cold weather climate, I would still live there, but I would be a puddle if I lived in Florida.
Understood. Well, we'd love to know a little bit about your podcast before we, get into having you more here on ours. So how did
Yeah.
you get started on that? And I guess we have to ask, can you share your favorite DCOM overall?
Yeah, it changes as I keep watching more and more. The podcast that I do is with my friend Val, and we do a podcast called D Commentaries, where we're watching all of the Disney Channel original movies in chronological order. We are currently in 2010.
Okay.
We are on a summer vacation because Val moved, and I am one of the busiest people alive. But we're coming back next month, so you'll be able to hear a couple new episodes. But it's fun. We recap the whole movie. We, do the business where we figure out the directors, writers, where are they now, kind of, and then a synopsis. We play a couple games. So it's really fun, especially if you haven't seen the decom before. We recap the whole movie for you, so you don't even have to watch it if you don't want to, or you can listen to your favorite ones and get some, nostalgia going in your brain while you're having fun listening. But my favorite decom, I love the Xenon the Sequel is one of my favorite ones. High School Musical 2, there's sort of a sequel happening. Yeah. And then I really, really love the first one, the original Under Wraps. It is such a good movie. And I have a couple hot takes, like Luck of the Irish, not as good as you remember it. Okay.
Oh,
so
no. That was what
I have hot takes. And then we also have interviewed a couple people. We interviewed Stu Krieger, who wrote 10 decoms. We just recently interviewed Johnny Tsunami, Brandon Baker, and then we interviewed Holly Folger, who was Aunt Judy in Xenon.
Oh, that's awesome.
We will check it out, but we're so honored to have you here today as a former Jungle Cruise skipper. We're like, we need a little voice of authenticity here. But Emily, why don't you share a little bit about the book all three of us read?
Sure. So first, a little bit about our author. I am just going to read his bio from the back of his book. So our author, David John Marley, a former Disneyland Jungle Cruise skipper, has a PhD in modern American history from George Washington University. He has taught for several years in California State University, Fullerton. Marley is the creator of the first ever class specifically on the history of Disneyland. Marley has appeared on the History Channel, published articles in scholarly journals, a chapter for an anthology on the civil rights movement, over a dozen book reviews and editorials for the History News Network. He has worked as a performer and comedy writer for Disneyland and is the producer of the popular Jungle Cruise-based comedy show, The Skipper Show. And Skipper Stories was published in 2016 by Bell's Library Publishing. There is a second volume of stories called More Skipper Stories, True Tales from Disneyland's Jungle Cruise that was published in 2022. And Trevor Kelly, who's another former skipper whose stories you can read in the book, is the illustrator for the cover.
Awesome. And we'll give just a little, Disney A to Z reference guide for the Jungle Cruise for context if you need it. Jungle Cruise is an Adventureland attraction at Disneyland, opened on July 17th, 1955, one of the most eagerly awaited attractions because of the extensive publicity given by Walt Disney on pre-opening television shows. Very little else was far enough along for him to show, but the channel was dug for the Jungle Cruise. Trees were being planted, and Walt was able to talk his viewers through a typical ride and eventually drive them through in his Nash Rambler, one of the television show's sponsors. The attraction was expanded in 1962, including the bathing pool of the Indian elephants, with more additions in 1964, the Trop Safari, African Belt region, and 1976, 7 new scenes and 31 figures. A new 2-story queue building was added in June of 1994, and the channel was moved slightly to allow space for the queue area for the new Indiana Jones attraction, which opened in 1995. Also, an Adventureland attraction in Magic Kingdom Park at Walt Disney World opened October 1st, 1971. In Tokyo Disneyland opened April 15th, 1983. And in Hong Kong Disneyland, known as Jungle River Cruise, opened September 12th, 2005. A Jungle Cruise was not built at Disneyland Paris because after the popularity of the Disneyland attraction, a number of European parks had already copied the concept and built one at Disneyland Paris would not have provided anything new to European visitors. In 2013, the attraction received a temporary holiday makeover at both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, with renamed boats, decorations, and spiel changes. The name of the Tokyo Disneyland attraction was changed to Jungle Cruise Wildlife Expeditions on September 8th, 2014. It features new lighting and special effects and original music.
So yeah, this attraction's had quite a history, opening day attraction in both parks. And has had quite a few changes, and we get to hear all about them in this book. So Skipper Stories came to our radar because we love to hear, as former cast members, current cast members, we love to talk about our cast member experience. If you're not tired of hearing us talk about Disney college programs, we're going to keep talking about them today. So what did we think of the book? Just kind of some overall thoughts and opinions. Allie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Thanks, Emily. I liked this book. I would like to preface it with I liked this book. It wasn't a hard read. I did think, and we will talk about this later, I'm sure, it felt very boys club. It felt very boys club to me. And I felt kind of, maybe because I'm a Walt Disney World skipper, this is a Disneyland book. I felt kind of like a mild outsider where I could connect to a lot of it. But also was like, oh, interesting. Okay. I, for the first time in my life, uh, used tabs. I've never used tabs before.
Emily is so proud of you right now.
I have tabs too.
Yeah, and my red tabs are like, oh, that's not how we did it at Disney World.
Ooh.
So I have a lot of thoughts, but overall, really enjoyed it. It pulled out so many thoughts I forgot that I had and memories I forgot that I had. And it was a really cool way to get that like firsthand kind of experience. I feel like it did a really nice job of, if you never worked at the Jungle Cruise, really explaining to you kind of how it was.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I had like just some minor quibbles with, I guess, the structure of the book. I don't know that we fully detailed this in our intro, but while David John Marley wrote it and has his stories in there, it was clearly, I feel like he probably put something out on Facebook like, hey, I'm looking to collect stories. And what I envision is people like sent paragraphs and paragraphs, and then what he did was take them as snippets and find common themes. And sometimes there would be some narrative context to segue you into each, but they did just kind of hop around randomly. So I felt like it maybe would have benefited from like a little stronger editing or like more narrative cohesion, because sometimes we would just pivot from like Christmas to 9/11, and I was like, whoa, whiplash there a little bit. But overall, I did enjoy reading it, getting a glimpse into it. And as someone who grew up visiting Walt Disney World, had only been to Disneyland once as a kid, it was interesting to see the differences, which I'm sure Allie will certainly touch on, having had the behind the scenes knowledge of the attraction. What about you, Emily?
I felt pretty much the same. I was really curious about how, like, we had a chance to talk to Marley, how he did collect these stories. Because it is about the same, probably 15 skippers over and over. There are a couple Alan Coates. He does have a couple of quotes in there from the late William Sully. So I'm curious where some of those came from, if they were from interviews or if he did actually get in touch with them. So I am curious if it was like a Facebook thing, like you're just trying to gather stories, you are going to be limited to whoever does participate. So I'm curious about like the boys club aspect that you're talking about. I felt that too. It is a lot of male voices. We did get a women's chapter, which we will talk about. But it's also if that's who responds and that's who had access to it, or who did you know? I would be curious to see if maybe with the second book, is it a lot of the same people, or did he get a lot more after getting
people saw the first one? It was like, well, I got stuff to share.
I'd be curious to see maybe who makes it into the second.
Or if Walt Disney World gets a say in it. Because I imagine there's like a Skipper alumni network or some
Oh yeah, I even looked it up. I'm in a Skipper's Facebook group, and David John Marley is in it. So
not surprised.
We're 1 degree of separation away.
I love it.
So Allie, when we talk more about the book, we've started every episode this summer in our Adventureland series with the Adventureland dedication that was given in 1955. And it reads, quote, "Here is adventure, here is romance, here is mystery. Tropical rivers silently flowing into the unknown, the unbelievable splendor of exotic flowers, the eerie sound of the jungle with eyes that are always watching," end quote. Might seem kind of obvious, but to you, how does the Jungle Cruise fit this dedication?
I mean, I think it hits the nail on the head. I feel like it was written about Jungle Cruise. And I know that you did you did the treehouse, which I think kind of also fits in there, but like the Jungle Cruise, especially through the words of the people in the book, like they, in one section, they talked about just like when you had a deadhead, which is a boat with no guests on it, you really just kind of felt so incredible being where you are in the moment and taking that like quiet ride through the jungle. And I feel like that really just like is the perfect quote for all of Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, it feels like with that being, as we revealed in the Disney A to Z thing, the Jungle Cruise was like the most ready as they were ready
Yeah.
for Disneyland. They're like, oh, yeah, just go out here, jot this down. Building off that dedication, though, in chapter 2, it asks the question, what makes the Jungle Cruise special? So I'd love to give the perspective from Emily and I regarding like how it feels as a guest, and then certainly what makes it special to you as a skipper. Well, I can go first. Sure. This is such a special attraction to me, and I really think it was my experience going to Disneyland because it was the first attraction we did. So my family, we were big Walt Disney World fans. We would go annually. I definitely recognize the privilege of that, just being able to go as part of the Disney Vacation Club. But in 2005, my dad was like, it's Disneyland's 50th. We're doing it. And our family always went left. We've discussed this on the podcast before. So
Yeah.
we would go left to
As
Adventureland
you
in Magic
should.
Kingdom. Yes. So we did the same in Disneyland. And the first attraction I did at Disneyland was the Jungle Cruise. And I was in middle school. I feel like I had like a newfound appreciation for the attraction. I was really into the Disneyland history. So like all of the rides that were opening day originals, I was super excited to experience. And then later that summer, this isn't like sad or dark, but like my parents are split. I went to Walt Disney World with my mom, and we closed that trip somehow with a ride on the Jungle Cruise at night. And I was just like, wow, like what a nice bookend. So just that summer, the Jungle Cruise became a really special attraction for me. And I think what makes it special is that it's new each time. You know, there are classic jokes. We'll touch on them. They touch on it here, but it's really the skippers that make that experience. And I never get tired of experiencing it.
I'm gonna very similar. So my family, we also always went left. So most of our trips started with the Jungle Cruise. But I think too, what made me appreciate it more, I think, is more so after Great Movie Ride went away. Because to me, a lot of them, you don't have Great Movie Ride without the Jungle Cruise in my head, because the
100%.
way that the cast members organize that, you have the skippers, and then did they call them something specific in?
I don't know. Your tour guide, maybe?
Tour guide.
I can text a friend really quick and ask
Phone a
because he
friend.
used to work there.
What were you called?
What were you called?
But it was a lot of that same feel where you have this cast member connection for like, what's great about this ride is it's an experience. You're on that attraction for anywhere from like 7 to 11 minutes, depending on how loading is going. So like you are with this person, you are with this 45 people on a boat, or however many fit. They kept saying 45 in the book, and I was like, is it really that many on a boat? So it's a very camaraderie experience. Like you are together with these people. There's not like blasting music that overtakes the attraction. You can talk to each other. There's a lot of engagement. And I think I started to appreciate a lot more when Great Movie Ride went away, because I loved the Great Movie Ride. Like that was my attraction. But then without it, like Jungle Cruise is the only thing where you have that cast member interaction for that long of a period of time. And being in nature and the jokes. And then, of course, with us having done so much Disney history through this podcast, like when I went to Disneyland, I've only been one time. We will make that more times in the future. It wasn't the first ride that I rode. I took Courtney's advice and immediately dropped Fantasyland instead. But I was like, we are not leaving. I don't care how long that line is. We are going on the original Jungle Cruise before we leave. And it was awesome. And it was so cool. And it was very different from Walt Disney World. So that was fun to see too. But I think that it's an opening day attraction in both parks. That cast member interactions, especially, like that's what just makes it such a unique and awesome experience. What about from the skipper side? Like, what did you gain from it getting to actually do the spiel?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through my mini jungle story of how I got to the Jungle Cruise. So I did not know what the Jungle Cruise was until 2013 when I found out I was going to be attractions. And they send you the email and it's like, you got attractions. This is what some of your attractions might be like. And they show you examples of, you might get a spiel ride, you might get a button pushing ride, all these things. So I saw video of the Jungle Cruise. Now, I've been going to Disney since I was in 3rd grade. Because it's downstairs, I think my family had no idea it was there. We would just walk right past it. I've been in the Tiki Room. I've been on Pirates of the Caribbean. So I didn't know it was a thing. So my first Jungle Cruise that I went on was my like first day of Adventureland Liberty Square training. I remember my skipper, her name was Lisa. Um, and I originally got cast as at the Pirates of the Caribbean, which I didn't tell you to mention in my bio because I'm crazy. But I started there, and Jungle was under refurbishment, so it was closed when all of the fall college program kids got there. So they had the at Fall Advantage college program kids, and then it opened up in like September, and they're like, "Oh no, we're understaffed because we usually get fall CPs and we didn't get any." So they took like half of the CPs from Pirates and cross-trained us at Jungle. And then once I got cross-trained at Jungle, I never worked again at Pirates. I had a couple friends who did both still, but I was just someone who, like, once I got Jungle, they never scheduled me again at Pirates. But I immediately knew how special it was. And it's the coolest ride. Like, I tell people now that I used to be a Jungle Cruise skipper, and it is to everyone like the coolest thing. They're like, "Oh yeah, and of course you did it." Like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I could talk to a literal brick wall. So me being a skipper of the Jungle Cruise is not a surprising fact for anyone to learn about me. But it now I go to Disneyland, I go to Disney World, kind of to like your point. Emily is like, I have to ride it. I'm not leaving this park until I ride the Jungle Cruise. And it is like now lives in my heart for, forever.
I think it's so incredible that I didn't know how people got to the Jungle Cruise. And it's funny, when I was writing this out, I had in my head, I thought you had to audition to be as like, because there is a script, there is a performance aspect. So I always thought there was something a little different. And I even wrote a question before, and I was like, what was your audition like? Assuming that there was going to be an audition. Because I know what I went through for entertainment. I didn't get to talk, and I had to go through an audition.
Right.
So but then I'm reading this, and then with your story, I had to change that around because you don't get to audition. It's happenstance.
And I think too, so in my college program, I got attractions because I was, I do improv, and I'm very involved in theater. And I think they took a lot of the more extroverted Pirates CPs and cross-trained them because they knew that they had known us for a little bit. So it's like, oh, I know this person. I trust this person, I know they can hold their own on a boat of apparently 45 people. So, I think that they were definitely very curated in who they chose to cross-train for sure. And not saying everyone at the Jungle Cruise is extroverted, because that is not true either. But they just knew our personalities a little bit.
And that's something I learned from the book as well, like talking about like the training. And they said like people would come and go because Jungle is either one where you fit and you work really well, or if you don't, it's very clear. And then for Disneyland, like they might end up more at Indiana Jones or Pirates on the other side. Indiana Jones is like their partner attraction, whereas things like in Walt Disney World, Pirates is the partnering attraction.
Yeah, the Pirates, and then like they call it ATT. It's Aladdin Treehouse and Tiki Room. So that's us. And then there's Liberty Square, which is Mansion, Hall of Presidents, and Riverboat. And so we all had like the same manager's office for ad lib.
Oh, interesting.
So a lot of people who were trained at Jungle Cruise were also trained at like all of the other attractions. So I'm not sure
one
how
day you could be spieling about the jungle and then telling people to bring their death certificate the next day.
Pretty
That's
much,
crazy.
yeah. It's landlocked, but like Adventureland and Liberty Square, she said, are together. But like at Tomorrowland, like I would not have had the opportunity to go over to the Jungle Cruise, but I could have learned other attractions in Tomorrowland besides Space Mountain.
Yeah.
But why would I want to? Like it's Space Mountain.
It's air conditioned. I'm so jealous. Also, guys, I'm going to talk for like 18 hours. I love talking about this stuff. I have so many thoughts. Okay.
So let's talk more about being a skipper. A big part of this was the script. There was a whole chapter about the script. Yeah. I'm hoping you've got thoughts and opinions and feelings about this. And then even on page, 45, they even brought up that, and he goes on in another chapter later about stand-up comedy informed skippers, or skippers who learn comedy become comedians themselves. So I'm also curious about you are a comedian. How did Jungle Cruise fit into your was it comedy then Jungle Cruise then comedy, chicken before the egg? Where does that all fit? But what did you think about like the script chapters or anything that stood out?
Yeah, so the script is the OG, it's the operational guide. It is 50 pages of jokes in every different section of the Jungle Cruise. They have like a list of jokes you can use. So that's kind of what we were saying earlier, is every time you write it, it's different because there are so many endless ways that one skipper can take a scene and do something different with it. Now, I only did 2 weeks of the regular Jungle Cruise. And you mentioned in the A to Z that in 2013, they introduced the Jingle Cruise. I was one of the first skippers to ever do Jingle Cruise. So that is my cool jungle Jingle Cruise claim to fame is I was in the group of the first cast members to ever get Jingle Cruise trained.
Cast.
That's
awesome.
And so it was, I did so many Christmas jokes, which Emily knows is very on brand for me.
Yeah. If you ever get to follow Allie on Instagram, Christmas is her time.
It's wild.
There's
a
photo shoot. There's choreography. There's a lot of tinsel.
There's a lot going on in the month of December for me. And so if you're listening to this and you don't hate me yet, follow me on Instagram. December will be worth it. I have been doing improv since 2009. So I already knew as like a kid and then going into college that I wanted to pursue improv and comedy. By sophomore year of college, I had changed my degree to theater from sports communication. And I still am a huge sports fan. I just knew that that wasn't what I wanted a career in for the rest of my life. So when I got to, my CP and Jungle was closed, I was like, cool, that's fine. I'll do something else. And then it was just like absolute magic that something that I, one, love to do, comedy, two, be the center of attention, was like the perfect job for me, opened up, a few months in. And yeah, I know a ton of people who still do performing from a Jungle. And even if they don't, like they're still like some of the funniest people I've ever met.
I think something interesting to touch on with the comedy was a comment made by Kaz Lippitt, who was a skipper in the 2000s. And she said that the internet took a lot away from the attraction, I guess maybe in like how loose they felt that they could be with the script or the type of comedy they were doing. So I would just love all of our thoughts on how we feel like maybe the internet, social media, its influence on attractions. There was certainly internet in 2013 when you're doing your fall program, but I would say even 11 years later, like the rise of things like TikTok and all have probably changed it even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's I do have my Jungle Cruise is somewhere on YouTube that was filmed by some guy who was lucky enough to get on my boat. Back then it was people videoing for themselves, and now people video for others, if that makes sense. And part of being recorded in social media now too is you have to be super careful about what you say, which we hear a lot of in this book of managers letting things slide, or now they're super strict and this would never be able to happen again. Like there's a lot of stories like that. That's honestly kind of half the book of like, yeah, we did these crazy things, where like if any of that was ever like put on social media, immediately like fired, and so you have to be kind of careful with how you're like speaking to people or the jokes that you use, which is why they have the OG, because you have to kind of stick to the script because that's, how you don't get in trouble. She says that she's not a badass person and will never go against any rule ever.
I was just say this is not the first time I've heard that sentiment from cast members. And interestingly, one of them was, I would say, tangentially related to the Jungle Cruise. Up until about 2008, there was a club at Pleasure Island called the Adventurers Club. And I feel like it's like a stepsister to the Jungle Cruise that had that 1930s expedition-esque, but it was an improv comedy club. It was beloved, but as Treasure Island, was closed to make way for the expansion of Disney Springs, we unfortunately lost that with it. But I've been fortunate enough locally in Orlando to go to like an Adventurers Club reunion with some of those comedians.
Oh,
and they often have said like, we could never do this now. The way that the internet is like, the things that, things we were saying, not that they were bad, but just that taken out of the context of that moment in the improv, in the show, for things to go viral like that, like we would be so scared for our jobs. So I felt like that sentiment was definitely echoed here within the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Emily, you too can kind of chime in with like being, friends in like entertainment of that's even different now too. With there are like certain dances and things that like friends can't do where you're like, oh,
Yeah, so a lot of that training, which being a character attendant, you also remember of like things we were and were not allowed to sign. This was before, so our time in entertainment, like Instagram didn't have reels. Instagram was literally only pictures. So yeah, I think it's really the video thing that's really changed the game more so than other social media. So our focus a lot was on like what you could and could not do in a photo. But yeah, it's a lot of those same sentiments of like some people would be surprised of like I don't remember what someone brought to have signed, but like because it had a logo on it, like the water bottle maybe had Adidas on it that I was like, can't sign it. It has to be blank or it has to be a Disney one. Like you can't cross brand. So even something as innocent as that, like we loved a pillowcase, we loved a blank frame, we loved an autograph book, but do not give me something that has another company's logo on it. Because of those things. So yeah, some of that, but I think I get torn on this because like I watched an hour of Jungle Cruise videos preparing for this. So like it was great to have not living in Orlando, or I've seen some of those great videos like COVID lockdown where people like just watched the attraction videos and it made them happy. I love that I watch Wishes. The last night of Wishes on HD is on YouTube and I watch it all the time. But then also when new attractions open, like trying to steer clear of Tron videos because I was like, I'm going in 2 months. I want to be able to experience it and be wowed. You lose a lot of the wow factor. Like right now with Tiana's Bayou at the time of this recording is the newest opening attraction. Like how much of that gets lost? People are like, I'm underwhelmed. I'm like, but
you're not there.
You're not experiencing it in the moment. Or are you on the drop going 40 something miles an hour? Because I don't think you feel the water on your face
or people who are leaving the attraction. I've even seen people say like, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I was like, but maybe if we didn't have all of the stuff beforehand of people commenting and just the politics now,
even that element of
theme park
media, the commenting.
We have Sunday morning shows of theme parks. Maybe it wouldn't take some of the magic away. I don't know, because I get torn on it. I think sometimes Walt would be like, "This is great promotion," because he was all for the free promoting. What gets people to come?
A lot of the skippers in this were because they would put the years after their names, and a lot of them I would imagine were David John Marley's friends from the 2000s. So I think, they're giving this perspective from like 20 years ago, but we're saying even in the 10 or so that we all started the theme park, just how much it all has changed. Yeah.
So they talk a lot about the relationships and like the boy, we're going to get to the boys club, but all these different like groups of people that would be friends. You had to earn your right to be friends. But I'm curious though about the college program versus full-time skipper relationships. We've all experienced that in our given attractions entertainment of, oh, you're a CP versus you're full-time. So what does that look like in Jungle Cruise?
Yeah, and I'm sure at Space Mountain you probably experienced something similar. CPs typically closed the ride. CPs worked at night. Yep. Because all of the like full-time and even part-time people wanted to work the morning. It was a better shift. It was better hours. You're not there until midnight during Christmas. So you really became better friends with the CPs because that's who you were working with most of the time. Okay. Now, during my program, and I know this has changed, I think it changed January 2016 because people like me in 2015 took advantage of it. But you could give up any shift. You didn't have to work a certain amount of shifts. As long as you were paying your rent to Disney housing, you could I could see a shift pop up on Thursday and I could post it. Someone could take it or I could change. Now, I think the rule is if they give you a shift, you have to work that day.
Yeah,
or you call out sick. Yeah, there's a lot more restrictions. And it's because in 2015, I said, I don't want to work character spot. And I just posted it and someone took it. But it was just all CPs. I think I worked one morning shift after training, like where I opened the park, and they were like, "Oh, we got to go do rope drop," and I'm like, what do I do with that? And we literally walked and took the rope down, and we all walked back to Jungle Cruise together, which was awesome. But I got to do it one time. But I didn't really experience like a clickiness at Jungle Cruise. I don't know if it's because I'm a nice person. I don't know if it's because I was delusional. I don't know if it's because I was friends with everyone. I don't know. Was there one? Maybe, but Jungle is such like I hate calling work family, but it was such a family.
No, I think the CP breeds that relationship because they didn't provide. I don't know if it's like Jungle Cruise is so exclusive at Disneyland that they just don't put college program participants out there because that wasn't touched on the book, but we wanted to touch on it here. But I would agree at Space Mountain, interestingly, the mountain is not connected directly to the utilidor because it's outside the berm of the park. So our break room was in the mountain. So like we couldn't get to the Mouseketeria. Like they would take us during training because you had an hour lunch during training. They're like, you'll never come back here because it's a 7-minute walk and you get a 30-minute lunch. So we really were close as well at Space Mountain because our break room was right there. Like you couldn't go anywhere else. I mean, it wasn't fun if you didn't like the person at the same time. But for the most part, we were all in the same situation where the nighttime was majority CPs, and then I would say younger cast who liked working with the CP. Those close in age to us. They were more night owls. But I did pick up a mid shift once or a day shift, and we had to open the attraction. I was like, I know how to close the attraction. I know I was trained on opening, but that was 4 months ago.
Like 100%, you're like looking at a checklist and you're like, I don't know what this means.
And I was like,
I don't know
these people. I think somebody was like, are you new? And I was like, no, I've been here 4 months, but I just work at night. Nice to
That's so funny. Yeah, even in the book too, like kind of to the point of where I'm just going to keep calling it the boys club. They talked about kind of like hazing new skippers where they would like, not include them or they had to prove their worth or things like that. And that was not my experience at all.
No.
Could that have also been the experience at Disney World before I got there? Potentially. But in 2013, I don't think me or any of my friends experienced like hazing from anyone else. There definitely were people there who were super traditional, had been there for a couple years, if not more than 5, who looked at CPs a little like, okay, you're going to be gone in 2 months. So why am I going to be a relationship with you?
I would
and that's
say
going to be anywhere.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't like a hazing thing.
No, that's good to hear. Another fun thing that I think was touched on was like the rite of passage of, officially taking out your first boat. So we'd love to hear about yours.
Thank you so much for asking. I do not remember.
Make it up. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And that's on improv. I do remember my boat where I was being monitored to get my I have earned my ears.
Yeah.
I do remember that boat. My final training boat. There was a manager and then my I forget what they called like the lead trainer who would like give you your test basically.
Yes,
you would go through all the positions.
You weren't allowed to be
your trainer wasn't allowed to do it. Someone else who trained.
Yes, Space Mountain. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just call them sign off person.
Great, sign off person. So my sign off for Steven. So I had made a joke, a huge One Direction fan. And I'd made a joke with a One Direction lyric in it. Perfect boat. And then after he goes, oh yeah, and then like what was that joke? I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, it's like a One Direction lyric. And he was like, yeah, don't do that. And I was like, okay. He goes, you passed. Because the theme is to stay in, the 1900s. And so you're not supposed to pull anything modern in.
I will say though, I like when the modern stuff gets
I kind of like when a little something is snuck in. Like I found it interesting.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that someone mentioned in Disneyland, they had put in one of the Jingle Cruises, a box in the Jingle Cruise that said ship to Arendelle, and they took it out immediately. We didn't have that, but that was really interesting to me that they were like, nope, not too modern.
And I'm curious, like with a song lyric, because I'm sure there are things that quote are modern that make it in, but because it sounds more evergreen. So like a song lyric, I feel like you could probably get away with it. The people who know, but like you didn't say One Direction or a singer's name.
Right. And the thing is, even if like no one would have known, it was for me.
Yeah.
Like
But you
it
had the
was
right
such a
boat. You got
yeah.
So I
some One
do feel
Direction
like
fans.
I
Yeah.
forget whose story it was, but someone did kind of point out, like that's a good lesson that I guess you learned from the trainer was like you can't be doing it for you. You really do have to be doing it for the
Yep.
guests.
Yeah, they mentioned that in the book too, of like you could have three different groups on your boat, and one is a group of teenagers, one is a group who doesn't speak English, and one is like adults who are fully into it, gonna laugh at everything. And you really have to be universal enough to make it an experience for everyone.
So like what went through your head? Like they load your boat. What are you looking for before you even start spieling? Or like what's your opening that you go for to kind of get a feel for what direction to go in?
As a skipper, you kind of have, like I mentioned, the jokes that you kind of stick to, where you're like, I know I'm gonna like do these ones. But the fun part about loading a boat is riffing off the people walking in. So you see a birthday button, or you see someone wearing, like, I'm a White Sox fan, you see someone wearing a Cubs shirt, you can give them, a little shit or something. I mean, you can't say shit, but like you like make these connections with people. And I personally still think that like if you sit all the way in the back of the boat, you're not going to be able to hear as well, and it's a completely different experience. So I really hate sitting in the back of the boat. But yeah, you just do your best to like, okay, who do we got here? Or like, I'm going to talk to these people. Or if you got a little kid up next to you, like have them drive the boat. Something that I wanted to mention, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Something I found interesting in the book that is very Disneyland centered and is very Disney World not centered is the way that the boats work on the river.
Okay.
So Disneyland seems to be on some sort of track that it can come off of the track and then you're a free floating boat.
Oh yeah, that was a whole
They talked about that a
chapter.
lot.
A
One
lot.
like going in a circle in the elephant pool, they're just like, we're just floating here.
Absolutely wild to me. And then when that someone mentioned that they fell in and then were in like mud and they had fish in there and like this was a legitimate river. I hate to ruin the magic for everyone for Walt Disney World. That is not how the Walt Disney World Jungle Cruise works. And it's also been 11 years since I worked there. So if you are mad at me ruining the magic, so sorry. The Disney World Jungle Cruise boat is on a trough. So if anyone says it's on a track, it's on a track, it's on a track, we say no, because it's not on a track. So so you could always be like, it happens a lot because they're like, how are you driving that boat? You're driving that boat? And they're like, it's on a track. I know it's on a track. And you're like, it's not. And so it's one of the best, like, kind of responses to someone who's asking you. And so it kind of it's got like two tires on the bottom and it's connected on two poles and it's all the way down. It's like 3 feet. And then they dye the river like a dark brown. So you can't see the bottom and you can't see the trough. On a really like quiet, clear, sunny day, you can kind of see it.
So one other thing that was really different. So there's a lot of stories in here about the guns in Disneyland. And like I said, I watched an hour worth of, I just kept looking at different videos to hear different skippers.
What years did you watch?
I watched 2023 and 2024's, like the most recent.
And you were doing Disneyland only, or did you go
Disneyland and Disney World?
Okay.
So I did 2 Disneyland, and then I did just 2 or 3 Disney World, and the Jingle Cruise one I watched was Disney World.
Cool.
But Disneyland does have the guns.
Mm-hmm.
Disney World does not, right? Am I?
No, yeah, I think we got rid of them.
They did in 2013, but we didn't have guns like Disneyland did.
Yeah, yours was electronic sound.
Yeah, right? It was just a trigger and it would just do the sound over the speaker, where Disneyland, they had to like load the gun
with blanks,
the bit.
Basically.
Yeah, with blanks.
And then I think with recent gun violence, it's frowned upon, which I also didn't really use the gun very much when I was there. I think in Jingle Cruise, if I remember correctly, we didn't like use it for the bits we were doing. But one of my favorite bits in Jungle Cruise in general is where they would like take the gun and I'm going to scare them away. And then they like scream out the boat and they're like, be my boyfriend. Yes. I love you. And they just are like holding the gun, like that's one of my favorite jokes in the hippo pool area.
But I noticed that because watching the videos, Disneyland, they're like, oh no, we have to scare the hippos. And they make a point now to say like they're firing in the air. I'm just going to scare them. I'm not shooting them. I'm just going to scare them. and they
Yeah.
fire it up. And then a lot of stuff in the book was about like how they use the gun to like signal if you hear 3 shots versus 6 shots was
Yeah, it was a
signals
safety
for like
signal
we
thing.
need help.
Yeah.
Like so the person off the
6
track going in a
was
circle was 6 shots.
yeah,
That's
and
crazy
3
to me.
was like just a mechanical breakdown.
But
But
then
then somebody shared one of the stories like they broke down behind Schweitzer Falls, and so the falls were so loud that nobody could hear their shots, and it wasn't till
But I was just so
the boats
surprised at how
backed
many
up.
there were so many gun stories. Like
So
one got
many.
into a stocking for like a Pollyanna thing. They're
Well,
like
and that
some
they took away the guns out of conservative gun violence like way back in
Yes.
2004, and then somebody was having lunch with Michael Eisner. Like Michael Eisner came to the break room and was like, "Oh yeah, I want to fire off one of those guns." Like, "Oh, they took the guns
That
away," and
didn't
then Michael
happen.
Eisner got them their guns.
Crazy. And someone took the
Allegedly.
gun and like they took it from the skipper and like robbed the bank or whatever.
Yes,
Yes.
such
That was wild.
wild,
Crazy.
wild stories.
Absolutely
So I'm
wild.
just like
throughout.
really curious about the philosophy that they're still using the gun in Disneyland, but we're
Yeah.
not using them in Disney World. So I'm really
I would
curious.
imagine they're going for the heritage angle
Yeah.
on it.
I'm
Mhm.
sure this is
They-
part of the original script.
Yeah.
Again, they are very clear about saying, I'm going to scare the hippos, and they make it very clear that they're firing straight up in the air, you know,
Yeah.
Hamilton style, versus trying to shoot the hippo. But Allie, you brought up the joke though, and I wanted to talk about jokes. That's actually one of my favorite jokes. Is I remember the first time someone leaned over and goes, "I love you. Come meet my parents." I
Mhm.
thought it was the funniest thing.
It's so good.
That's a good
It's
one.
so
What
good.
Mine was definitely someone like riffing, just like a weird memory that like actually made me like guffaw out loud. It was a nighttime one, and they were shining their light on the African belt, and they're like, just naming the animals out there. Like, we have giraffes, we have zebras, and then they said some 1971 impalas, and I don't know, that just really tickled
So
my
good.
my funny bones. So maybe that is in the script, but I only heard that once, and I was like, it took me a moment, and then I got it, and I was like, oh, because of the Chevy Impala, and it just, I was like, that was a clever one. I
Mhm.
wouldn't say that's my favorite overall. I don't know, I like right in that area as well. Of course, like the rock related jokes and don't
Oh,
take
I love
it
the
for
rocks.
granted. Like I've
Yeah.
seen people go on like at least a
My
like
gosh, I'm
6
gonna
to
get
10
sentimental,
tangent
you
there.
guys.
The rock.
I also liked this one I saw watching these videos was unique. Disney World has the book that's on that we're a book podcast. So I'm gonna go
Did
for
they
the
do
book joke.
did they do the Jungle Book joke?
Yeah, so one of the skippers that I listened to did the Jungle Book joke. And they're like,
Mhm.
book in the jungle. And it was Jungle Book. They're like, War and Peace. Sorry.
I like when they fake you out.
Yeah.
Like the Niles for Niles, and if you don't believe me, most people would say you're in denial. They're like, no,
Disbelief.
disbelief. Yes, and I
Mhm.
was like, ooh, like little pivot there at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I love those. Yeah, I have like a ton of favorite jokes. It's funny because I feel like it would be hard for me to go through and like if you put me on a boat and like do my whole spiel.
Now,
Yeah, it would be hard. But one of my favorite Christmas jokes or Jingle Cruise jokes was when we would get to the snake and then you say like, "Oh, they got me a tree wrapped up in a boa."
That's
I
cute.
loved that one. And then, I mean, like every Christmas joke, but I feel like that's every just joke. And then I love it. Yeah, I'll do this now in my current life because I golf a lot. So if I'm like golfing with someone new, I'll like go through my favorite plants. And there's like 2 ways to do favorite plants where you just point and it's completely silent. You're just pointing at your favorite plant. Or like hibiscus, low biscus, limp biscus. Like I just like love going through all the plants.
They did talk about the process of getting jokes approved. So people had,
Mhm.
and maybe pre-social media, a lot more leeway of getting to try out jokes. Hopefully some skippers are still doing that, but there is an official process to like get it added to the book of jokes you can pick from. So they talked about like Disneyland, at least at the time in the early 2000s, sounded like they had almost like a suggestion box. Like you would write it down. If you knew the person who created it, you'd add their name. It would get submitted to the lead, who would then talk about it with WDI, and like it worked its way up. So like it was quite a process to get a joke approved to get added into the script. Did Walt Disney World have a process? what did that look like for you? Have you submitted a
I'm
joke?
not too sure. I don't remember us being able to submit jokes. And maybe it wasn't like a CP thing.
Mm.
So I'm not too sure how they made updates. So I sadly can't offer too much insight, but I know that because of the first year of the Jingle Cruise, that was a huge learning year, and they definitely took like the managers rode a lot more boats during Jingle because they wanted to like see reactions and see how jokes were hitting. And something that I wanted to mention too was um, one of my friends from the Jungle Cruise, who I'm still like, I call them internet friends, which I would say Emily and I are internet friends now, where we
Yeah.
keep up with one another, over
Yeah,
Instagram.
predominantly online. Yeah.
So one of my internet friends from the Jungle Cruise, he would bring his boats back and get his entire boat singing. So they would be singing a Christmas song. So like up on the rooftop, reindeer paws, or I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
actually know
You
what
had
it
it.
says. Okay, great. Woo! And so they would like all be singing, and he would get like standing ovations, obviously, because you have to be outstanding on the boat, or on the dock. But he like would like get such very, I can't even think of the word. People loved it, but the managers did not. And
Mm.
he was not allowed to do it after like a week because they said it was a huge distraction. And I will always remember him like getting kind of in trouble for giving his guests like this incredible experience, but it wasn't like OG, and it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I guess if people are, because Unload's not that far from Load, like if somebody's getting on a different boat and they're like,
And they don't
why
sing.
weren't we singing at the
Hmm.
end? I can see both sides of it.
Sounds like a
One
lot of the
thing,
entertainment rules
yeah,
for
Yeah.
consistency's sake.
one thing that, speaking of consistency, this is relevant to what I was thinking from the book, was I was surprised to see that the skippers had such mixed reviews or reactions to the backside of water joke, though it is, in terms of consistency, a fan favorite. Several mention, if they didn't do it, someone would automatically on their boat be like, you didn't do the backside of water
Hmm.
joke. So I'd love to know what each of us think of it. Allie, you can go first as the skipper.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think I didn't really get it at first. I'm a natural blonde. And so I think I was like, yeah, I don't get it, but it's because you're behind the water, and so it's the haha joke. But after it, I would make the joke of don't try it at home. You'll like, oh gosh,
Hit
it
your
was
head
like
on
you'll
the
get water up your
faucet.
nose, or yeah, you'll hit your head on the faucet, or
Yeah.
Um so that was always really funny. But I know a couple people, and I think someone else mentioned this in the book too, is instead of doing backside of water, they would do Phantasmic, and they would turn the lights on and off really
I
quick
have seen
at
that, so
night.
I was
Hmm.
excited to. I love riding the Jungle Cruise at night, so I liked that. Like they
Oh yeah,
acknowledged its
completely different experience.
reputation
They're wild.
in the book, and I've seen that a few times. So I was like, oh, that's nice that they do it over there. My fun little Schweitzer Falls story is, kid, grown up, went on Jungle Cruise a lot, knew of Schweitzer Falls. I didn't know Dr. Albert Schweitzer was a real person. So, like, I thought they just made up a name. And then I remember sitting in my ninth grade English class and we were doing like PSAT like testing, and they had, some kind of essay from Dr. Albert Schweitzer. And I remember going home to my dad and being like, Dad, did you know Dr.
It's a
Albert
real guy.
Schweitzer is a real guy? And my dad's like, yeah. And I was like, Schweitzer
So,
Falls,
okay.
Dr.
So
Falls.
that joke never landed for me because I didn't know also that that's a real person.
You
So I
don't
think
have to
it's
know it's a real person though to get the joke.
right, but it lands better if you know it's
Yes.
a real person because the
Enhance.
whole idea of it's named after this is Schweitzer
Dr.
Falls, it's named
Albert
after Falls. Like you're
Falls.
expecting them to say Schweitzer,
Hmm.
but like I was like, okay, Falls, fine. But if yeah, it hits better when you actually know it's a real person. And I too did not know that was a real person until so
Hmm.
like it's interesting, and I'm seeing this too. Like this goes for anything, but being a teacher who works consistently with the same age group every year, they stay 14. I get older.
Right.
Um, you you notice when references don't hit anymore. So sometimes
Hmm.
like it is an OG joke, but if like it was standard, like your parents like, yeah, Albert Schweitzer, like that was a standard English
Yeah.
When was
or
this
history
man
class.
alive?
But yeah, like I never learned about him. So like at what point do some things, that common knowledge that you can riff off of or make jokes about,
Oh,
is or
okay.
is not?
Yeah, no, this checks out because he died in 1965. So he was
There it
alive for
is.
at least 10 years of the Disneyland
Okay.
Jungle Cruise. That makes me feel a little better, but yeah, we proved your point there, Emily.
But yeah, because I could see that maybe when I started queuing in on like this is supposed to be a joke, I was like, it's a joke, but it's not one of my favorites because I didn't get it. And now that I have more context, I'm like, oh, okay, I see it now. But yeah, if that's something that they want you to keep that because that is his name. Also, Skipper Felix, that was consistent from both. When I was watching the skipper who's up the with the rhino,
Oh, okay. They gave him a
both
name.
Disneyland and Disney
Well,
World
I
called him
think
Skipper
they
Felix.
redid that scene like not too long ago. That might have been post-COVID. I don't know. They redid that whole rhino scene, so I could see them having updated the script to reflect the newer animatronics that were
And then
added.
someone in the book too mentioned that they would do the, wow, look at that. How many rocks are on the beach? And like that was what we would do. A lot of people would do that.
I don't think I ever encountered that once. That was a fun one to read.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with, on top of jokes. Jokes are for the crowd, but it sounded like this is quite an attraction, maybe because they had so much room to play, that there's a lot of pranks that come with the Jungle Cruise. And that was quite a lengthy chapter in this book. So I was curious if there were any pranks that you thought were particularly good, before maybe we talk about Allie's experience, if you had any pranks on the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, me?
But any that you thought, well, any that stood out that you're like, wow.
I was shook by Jungle Police. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, that's gotta be some kind of safety infraction. So for those who have not read the book, Jungle Police would be when skippers, on the dock or on break, would commandeer an empty boat and like the skiff, like a smaller boat, and come arrest the skipper, air quotes, in the Indian bathing pool, take them off the boat and give the guests a new skipper, and then tie the old skipper up at the dock so that he was at unload. And I was like, how did they
movie
get
ride?
away with
It is
it?
great
That is
movie
great
ride.
movie ride. Oh my
That is
gosh, I didn't
100%
even
great movie ride.
think of that. Somebody worked Jungle Cruise and then went and wrote the great movie ride. You cannot unconvince me.
Well,
of
yeah,
that
that's crazy. And your leads or people are just like, I want to know how they had time for these pranks. I'm like, aren't you like at a location? Like you're loading people,
right? Aren't you in
people.
rotation? Like I could not walk away from the console at Space Mountain.
Or like a prank like that. Like, okay, if you have a break, and they made a big deal in this book about you do not short your breaks, because they also had the was it Jungle Justice?
Yeah.
For abusing your breaks. But like a 30-minute break, you did not have time to do Jungle Police on a 30, even 40-minute break to go get a boat. I didn't
have time to go to the Mousqueteria, okay?
So yeah, I'm just like, where are the leads? Like the things you could get away with.
Yeah.
Were insane.
I was surprised that those pranks were happening well into the like 70s, 80s, 90s.
Even the
like
2000s,
that is crazy.
I think.
Yeah,
but early, yeah.
It's just wild because nothing like that happened. And then you mentioned the rotations. Like by the time I got there, our rotations were 20 minutes. So a new rotation would be set out every 20 minutes. So we didn't have time to like do stuff like that. The most pranks that we got were like over the microphone to the guests, like our coordinators, or if we were waiting or something, like we could make jokes over the over the loudspeaker. Yeah, the PA system. Thank you. And I don't remember too many like pranks and stuff, but crazy reading some of the things that happened there.
I want dishwasher soap to make it into. Could you imagine just bubbles all over the jungle?
Crazy.
I feel like I had heard that story outside of this book. Like that's like one of those like.
I think I remember hearing something about that too. I don't remember if they said that it happened at Disney World and then it didn't, and it was at Disneyland.
With water, someone brings soap.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that they even most people were like, oh yeah, we would like go. I'd have lunch in the Jungle Cruise. I would go on top of Schweitzer Falls and just like cool off.
Going on safari. But then they did acknowledge that like now that is really frowned upon.
Yeah,
now
safety.
You'd be like instantly
safety begins with me.
Like, that checks out. So it's a different time in the 2000s, which is not that long ago, but very much so. We gotta we got to address the woman in the room, which is all of us, but also
Whoa.
the many women of the Jungle Cruise. So another remarkable chapter was 11, Women on the Dock, where we learned that Sue Barnaby became the first female jungle skipper in Disneyland in, wait for it, 1995. So the 40th anniversary of that park. I did learn though that Walt Disney World, they didn't say when women became were skippers at Walt Disney World. I don't know if that was from the 70s, but she was like, we have skippers at Walt Disney World that are ladies. Why can't we do that here? So the distinction was at that time, women did the storybook canal boats over in Fantasyland, men did Jungle Cruise. What did you all think about her story in this chapter?
I was shocked at how late
Yep.
it took. Like, it didn't surprise me when I learned that it was a gendered role to begin with. That
But
didn't
the
surprise me.
90s.
But to 95?
Yeah.
That's too
Wow.
long. It's too
Her
long.
bio said 80s to 90s, so I was thinking, I guess that was reflecting her time
At
the
Disneyland.
park. So, but when I was reading that before we got to that chapter, I was like, okay, like they integrated in the 80s. Like that's also when a lot of women were entering the workforce more. But then we got the fact check of 1995, and I was like, wait, what?
And all it took was she went to Walt Disney World and was like, oh, there,
And
and
it was
she asked
also-
somebody.
It's
And they're
because
like,
she
"We
didn't
always
want to
had."
work at Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
That too, like it wasn't this big crusade. We did not have like the March on Jungle Cruise. Could you imagine
March on Jungle Cruise.
the Women's March on Jungle Cruise 1995? I have a dream. Could you imagine? It was just like, why can't we?
Yeah.
And then I guess once they brought in, well, Walt Disney World has them. I guess someone in Disneyland is like, well, now that that's out, we can't
I guess
say
we have
like there's
to.
no way for us to defend why we don't, other than tradition.
Yeah, but it
Mhm.
became like a news media thing. She's like, I had friends in Germany who saw something in their paper. I was just,
I would know how
I
Walt
saw an
Disney World
article that,
skippers
like, I
felt like,
Googled
what the
it.
hell?
yeah, you found the article.
Yeah, I found an article. It was crazy.
I wonder how the Walt Disney World women skippers felt like. We've been here.
Yeah, excuse
Right.
me, hello, hi.
Mhm.
Still a big
But
deal.
also some of the perspectives that were included in that chapter that were still like, I don't know if it should be women on the Jungle Cruise. And I was like, well, why would you want your name associated with that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's for the context of for everyone
Of
wondering
the
why we keep
book.
calling it a boys' club. This is the
The
reason.
book is a boys' club.
The book is a boys' club.
There was one guy who said like one shift, it ended up it just happened to be all male, and their lead was like, as it should be. And it's just like,
Gross.
whoa.
Gross.
Oh my
Was
gosh.
there any sort of like boys' club on the Walt Disney World side, just from the like women can be funny like type attitude?
Yeah, I mean,
that
you
faced?
get your traditional guest who will feel that
Mhm.
way, but I know someone in the book talked about like guests would refuse to board my boat. My name is Moana. And like they like refuse to get on a boat if their skipper was a woman. And I think that is
Yeah.
absolutely insane. So like that doesn't happen, but I definitely, you get there like, oh, well, you better be funny, like I'm, judging you if you're not. But like some of the funniest skippers are women. Like the
Yeah.
fact, and some of the funniest comedians in the world are most of the funniest comedians in the world are women. You ever go to a stand-up comedy show in Chicago? It's going to be 14 white dudes talking about their dicks. Okay, not funny. So that's the boys' club of stand-up comedy in Chicago. But I don't do stand-up. I just go watch it. But yeah, it's just absolutely like it was so disappointing. Like I could tell my mood and my energy changed when I got to the chapters where it was talking about how like women weren't on the boats and then kind of how they viewed women for a while. And then it made me sad too, reading some of the stories for the skippers who were like, well, I had to be the ditzy one because no one was listening to me when I was
Yes,
mean and I would get complaints.
I do want to give Marley credit though for how that chapter was written. That I mean, the whole book is him just presenting, here's what
and-
so and so said.
For sure.
But he
It's
didn't
a
cut it out.
perspective to have.
He
No,
let
and-
all of those perspectives sit together on
I
those
was
pages
surprised
of
people-
women saying their experiences, as well as some people saying why they did or did not like this change.
I think that's a good point and a good distinction. Like I was just surprised that people were willing to put their name to those thoughts publicly. But
True.
kudos
There were a
to
couple that said
him
anonymous, but
for not censoring it. Like I do think that was fair and needed to be included.
I think that was the biggest
I
shock to me in this book. Like I was not ready for that. I did not think that was going to be a thing.
Some of the names of stories and things run together, but I do remember this one. Her name was Jen Chavez, and she was the first pregnant Jungle Cruise
Yeah,
skipper.
that
And
was such a fun story to
it
listen
was a
or
cute
hear.
one, but then she was like, I had to like go to costuming and like have a makeshift costume pulled together. But I think it's great that they were willing to work with her on that. Like she shared how supportive the leadership was, and some of the things that she could like play into in that condition.
Yeah, I was really happy that when I read that story, because it was after Sue's and after a couple perspectives of the change, and then when he prefaced with a little bit of context, the first pregnant skipper, and I was like, oh, please be good. And it was a good story. And I was like,
yeah, feel good story.
We ended really well in that chapter. Thank you. We've all worked in theme park operations. Moving on to other funny parts of the chapter, I love the guest chapter. So I want us to maybe share some takeaways we've had with working with guests, where that comes from. But I love the list of things like complaints people got. So either sharing some of our favorites from all three of us in our operations roles, some that kind of stood out.
I just liked some of, like you said, the list of questions. I did not use tabs, so I don't have that to reference back. I love the question, like, do you work here? What you have your name tag and your costume on fully.
Yeah.
Or people who like don't know, like this wasn't an experience at Space Mountain, but specific to what we read in the book, like people complaining that it was funny, like this guy didn't take his job seriously, and you're like, nope, that's the point.
That's part of it. I think it's funny that so many people complained, and then they would like go to city hall and complain, which I don't know if I'm sure you had to have experienced this too at Space Mountain, which is if you forgot your name tag, you were wearing someone else's name tag.
You were
empowered. Yeah. And so you were just, because you're like, oh, I'm not me today. I'm Annabelle. So then they'd be like, I'm going to City Hall and I'm going to tell them Annabelle was terrible. And you're like, okay, they don't know who that is.
Well, and then that's literally a joke on the Jungle Cruise of like, if you've enjoyed this tour, my name is Allie and this was the Jungle Cruise. If not, my name is Kimmy and this was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's so good.
I like some of the ones on here that were like, the boat, I got wet on the boat. They're like, it was raining and it's a water attraction.
Yeah. My favorite guest from the chapter 14 of guests, my favorite like little quote, which I'm going to read because it's short, was when I could connect with guests on my boat and crack them up, it was the greatest feeling in the world. The idea was that I could make guests happier when they left than when they got on my boat. And I love that so much because that's exactly the goal of the Jungle Cruise, of like, even if you're having a crazy day where you're fighting with your family, you got 10 minutes to sit down and not think about anything. And you just make everyone smile. And even if you didn't like make them laugh, I call them, I still do comedy. And so like you'll have a show of smilers. So it's like a quiet boat, but they're having a good time. They're just not like loud laughers. And so even if you had a boat like that, like it just, you impacted at least one person on that boat. And I really liked that from the guests section.
I know we think of like, oh, these funny, like chaotic guest stories, but I did deeply appreciate the ones where like they took someone out. It was like a private boat of two, where it was like their anniversary. The husband was probably going to pass soon and just making that difference. Like things that stick with me at Space Mountain were just the excitement in guest eyes. Like I remember being at Restraint, which is the last cast member you see before you actually go on the ride, and just having like a Make-A-Wish kid sitting in the front of the rocket and like how palpably excited he was for that ride. And then like I called down to unload and was like, give them a re-ride, like send them back up, just because it's like you can tell they're forming a core memory in that moment.
Absolutely. And that was the best part. Like we have a wheelchair boat, and so when you get like anyone in a wheelchair is just like so happy that they can actually experience the Jungle Cruise too. And they like, because there's so many rides at Disney World that aren't ADA accessible. And like I know Peter Pan isn't one of them. And so like that sucks for all the people who can't transfer out of a wheelchair. So like to be able to have an experience where you're just experiencing the ride like everyone else. It's the best. And then my Christmas story is I worked on Christmas. I was working 3 to 3, and it was Christmas Day, and I was just not happy to be there because at this point in time at the Jungle Cruise, I was very tired. I was overworked. My throat was going, which I then had to get my tonsils out. My feet were going, which now I have plantar fasciitis. It was it honestly is rough working at the Jungle Cruise, but I was sad I wasn't home. It was the first time I hadn't been home for Christmas. And I started talking to this woman and her son in line. And of course, it's Christmas Day, so lines are at least 120 minutes, maybe more. And she was wearing like a Christmas pin. It was like a puzzle piece that had like a snowman on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love your pin. I love Christmas, this and that. And I started talking to her and her son. And she was wearing, it was a puzzle piece for autism, and her son had autism. And she was so grateful that I had just come over and interacted with her while she was waiting in this really long line. Cause I kind of like walked with her as she was like waiting in the line. That she like ran this Facebook page and she had like posted about me. And it was just like one of those like feel good Christmas stories of like, she made my day. I made her and her son's day. It was like such a mutual, like we all needed that on that day.
Yeah.
And Christmas is one of those days where like you cannot show up to a Disney park and be entitled.
So he ends that chapter before like the list of funny things with these 2 guests who came in from LAX that morning, and they were so excited. And he's like, we've been here for 6 hours. He's like, it's a long time. They're like, no, we've been in the United States for all of 6 hours. And this was the first thing they wanted to do, was go to Disneyland. And he said, like, it kind of reminded me that I work here every day, but there are people who save their entire lives to come here one time. And that is something I think I took with me even post program. They used to make the joke, like, they're going to ask you, what time's the 3 o'clock parade? And what they mean is, what time does the parade get to us in the location we're at? Or someone's going to ask you, where's the bathroom? And you're going to hear that question 50 times in an hour. And it's going to make you irritated, but you have to remember, from their perspective, this is all either brand new, they've saved so much to get here, it's new information to them. And as a teacher, I bring that with me to the classroom all the time.
Awesome.
Because I get asked the same question multiple times a day.
Right.
But I think that's reality checked me a couple of times. And I wish some guests would also reality check themselves too when it comes to cast members and how they interact with them. But that's something that I took away from like interacting with guests, even though I didn't get to talk to guests. Allie, you talked for me for guests.
I did.
Well, before we let you go, Allie, there's a story that I feel like we have to touch on because you were integral to it. We learned from this book that the Jingle Cruise started in 2013 as an idea from contributor to the book, Skipper Kevin, who later transferred to WDI and worked with, I'm going to call him friend of the podcast, Kevin Rafferty, to make this happen. So Allie, what was it like being a skipper during the holiday season, like for this first ever time of that overlay?
It was honestly very interesting because people were still really skeptical. And by people, I mean skippers and guests.
Okay.
So there were a lot of skippers who were like, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, I don't really want to do this. So kind of in the book too, where they mentioned like some skippers would do half regular, half Christmas. And then you had skippers like me who went full Christmas. Every joke was Christmas. Couldn't not. One of my favorite jokes is you see 2 elephants when you're right after the Nile, and you say like, oh, and they're celebrating Christmas, and then, oh no, the most dangerous animal in the jungle, his mother-in-law. Like, you know, we're at Christmas dinner, the 2 elephants. That was one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I'm gonna call out one of my best friends who was a skipper with me. We met on like the first day of our program in 2013. She stole one of the Santa hats. And I'm calling her out because she refuses to wear it at D23 this weekend. And I was like, it's been 11 years. No one cares. But it's like one of the, it was like a relic I wish I also had, but the Jingle Cruise was absolutely the best.
So for me, working on my college program was the first time I was ever in the parks for the holidays. I was strictly a summer family. So I didn't know how new the Jingle Cruise was because it just always had been there.
Yeah.
from
when you
when
were
I
there.
first ever went for Christmas.
Yeah,
So I
I
always
was
thought
the
it was a
year
thing. Didn't know
before
it was that new.
you. And so it was the second year of the Jingle Cruise. And so like, I think I had heard like, oh yeah, they started this last year. Like this is newer. I had gone for Christmas once, like back in 2006. So I knew it wasn't
Okay.
there then, but there was a Christmas over at a Country Bears. I'm like, I go into the Country Bears like ready for Christmas and it was still just Country Bears and on my college program. And I was like, oh, guess
Sad. Okay.
that's not a thing. But Jingle Cruise. And I like it. I definitely make a point
I'm
to
a
do
fan.
it when I go to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. I think it's
Yeah.
become essential to that experience. But I love that it's not exclusive to the Christmas party. It is available all day, every day in that season. So
and again, it gives that ride repeatability, and that was something
it
that
already has repeatability.
right, but even more so.
Yes.
Like I don't know, it's just even within different seasons, you know, you can
No,
get
it is fun
further
to see
repeatability.
how did they decorate it. Something they had touched on was like the first year they didn't really go all out on decorations.
Right.
But
And
guests
that's
were
what they
like,
wanted. They wanted it to be
"You
super basic.
hyped this up for us." So then I think that was probably why when I was there in 2014, it was like, we got decorations now. And I was just like, I don't know what it looked like last year, but this is cool. So that makes sense. Any final stories? I know y'all had tabs, like things that you wanted to bring up.
Man, I mean, I could talk about the Jungle Cruise forever. Let me see, just like going through.
Yeah, I was just flipping through my tabs as well, if there were any that particularly
we gotta
stood
start
out.
doing tabs, but we're like 8 years into this podcast or something. No, we're like 6 or 7, but
as a complete aside, I read the Disney my favorite one that I listened to you guys, they're all good, but I'm gonna buy that Disney Windows book for Ryan for Christmas this year. Oh, something that I wanted to mention too. So at the Jungle Cruise with like how you become this family, there's something called like a skipper bracelet at Walt Disney World. So this is kind of the way like you become you become a skipper. So you have to go with another skipper to get one of those leather bracelets where I believe they do them at
like at the Adventureland card or Canada.
Exactly. Those two exact spots. You have to go with a skipper who's been there to go get your skipper bracelet. And I never got one.
Oh.
And it breaks my heart. But I know I will one day. I just have to go with another skipper and get it. But
can it be a former skipper? Like you've got people still in town down
right?
here.
Like I think I still can get one.
Cammie next time you're visiting. Be like, girl, I need to pass.
Girl, we're hanging out. The last time I saw her, I ran through the finish line of the half marathon, and she was like someone handing out like ice or medals or something. And I was like I was broken. But it was like so great to see her. She's just the nicest person. On my second program,
listeners who don't know, we like had a moment before
Small world
the
moment.
podcast where we realized all three of us know the same person. So shout out to Cammie.
Shout out Cammie.
We have quite a network of people we know through each other.
There's so many people we
discovered.
know. Okay, something I found really interesting. So from the 70s and 80s, on page 220, they would have parties where you would go to a big like kind of frat party after work or on the weekends. Yes, and they had these like huge parties.
The banana ball.
And okay, so I want your thoughts on this, gals. There was this thing we called jungle juice. It was a giant punch bowl, and we stirred it with paddles that we took from the river. The jungle juice was a combination of cheap champagne and fruit juice. When I was in college, we called our cooler mixers of Everclear and vodka and High C and all of that stuff, jungle juice.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that this has any influence on that?
I don't know if it was just a broader cultural thing. Now I'm trying to think, like, do they call it that in a movie like Animal House? Like, I've only seen that.
I found that so interesting.
Yeah.
I still don't know how they got the paddles out. Like the things they got away with. How did you get a paddle? If any of us we're skeptical about stealing a headband, let alone get a paddle out of the attraction.
While we're on the banana ball, I did like the original intent of, we know this was a boys club, but I'm just going to place myself in the 60s. And like they would all wear like tropical attire, but your date had to wear like a full evening gown. And I was like, okay, you know
Obsessed.
what? I would have been on board with that. I
Yeah.
would have
Obsessed.
busted out the evening gown. I
I
was
like
like,
a
that
theme party.
sounds cute. I like a theme. I love a good theme. I'm
And I
always
think
down
it
for
could
that.
still go either way. If you still had this now and you're a female skipper, you showed up in your
Your ball
skipper
gown,
costume,
and you had to bring
well,
a
then your significant
partner.
other
Yeah.
is in their formal wear of
Yeah.
whatever that is. A tux, a ball gown.
That just
I'm a
sounded like
fan of
some
it.
legendary stuff. But also found interesting the dynamic of when they had the perspective of people who were leads, which I think would be the equivalent of a modern day coordinator, where
Yes.
sometimes you work the attraction in your regular costume, sometimes you're coordinating, which would be like the step before management dealing with the schedules and deployment and things. And interesting to hear that, like, okay, you're still in this role where like, okay, you are going out to the banana ball, but you're like, y'all better show up to work tomorrow because I'm the coordinator
They did
and
say
I'm
it
gonna
was
have to deal
like
with that.
after these parties, either banana ball or what was the other one? Skipper or something. Um that it was they were looking for who would call out the next day and you would be
Yep.
harassed. They're like, you don't call out hungover, you show up and you just work through it. That itself was like a badge of honor of like, I don't abandon my skippers, I don't call out. I thought that was funny. One for me,
Yeah.
I guess, just as a teacher, and something that's really exclusive to Disneyland is grad nights. And how they talk about like just everything went out the window on grad nights. Everyone's just in survival mode with these teenagers. And I like some of the jokes they threw in of like things that they would roast teenagers with. And again, maybe the social media thing, but as a high school teacher, I want to get away with that sometimes so
Yeah.
badly.
And you definitely can't now.
No, definitely not. Very careful about what is said in my classroom.
The
Um,
equivalent chapter at Walt Disney World would have been Night of Joy. I'm just gonna go ahead and
Yes,
say
yes,
it.
yes, yes. Night of
okay.
Joy. Other than that, I mean, just overall thoughts of the Jungle Cruise, like it had such an impact on my life. One of my best friends and I are still, we call each other Skipper. We send each other birthday gifts. We are seeing each other this weekend for the first time in like 3 years.
Aw.
And I still am, Facebook friends with so many people. And I feel like the thing about a skipper is you can see them and you pick up right where you left off. It's not weird. It's like, oh, it's just the best. It is that little like it's a little cult, but
I
it's
love
not
that.
working at Disney.
I
I
think they
do.
should do Skipper's Stories Volume 3 and do the Walt Disney World edition.
Yes, would love.
I'm just glad something like this exists. I know we've talked about maybe a couple critiques of like how many people you get involved in hearing from the same
hmm
voices, but I would love to see this from different attractions. Like how
Yes.
interesting would that
Yeah,
be? Because we
that would
all
be a
can
really
bond
cool
over
series.
yeah, we can all bond over working in Walt Disney World together. And I
But we
think that's
each had
something,
things
yeah, very
distinct
different
to our roles.
experiences.
Yeah, I think that brings us to a good point as we wrap up. We always like to leave our listeners with some additional resources. So if you like the Jungle Cruise, if you like this idea of skipper stories, I would like to recommend you go back to Book of the Mouse Club podcast, episode number 28. And that was our author interview with Lynn Barron of The Sweep Spot about his book, Cleaning the Kingdom. So this was a book written by two former Disneyland custodians. So I saw a lot of through lines. I feel like they worked there within the 90s and 2000s. So just some very similar sentiments from those that were echoed from Skipper Stories. So where Skipper Stories was a collection of many Jungle Cruise skippers, this was two people writing a book together, but I saw the through line between them. So it would be fun to hear his story if you want to go back and listen to that, or pick up 2 volumes of The Spot.
Also want to recommend on Disney Plus Behind the Attractions, season 1, episode 1 was the Jungle Cruise. So the very first attraction they showcased on that. I went back and rewatched it for this episode. Still learn something every time I rewatch it. Also want to recommend William Sully Sullivan's memoir, From Jungle Cruise Skipper to Disney Legend. I had mentioned earlier he had recently passed this summer in July of 2024 when this was recording. So if you want to learn more about him, Disney Legend, he was part of the 55ers Club. His first working job was Jungle Cruise in the 50s. So that's something really exciting and perspectives. He was in this book a little bit. We got a couple quotes from him.
Yeah,
But if
the
you want to
quotes
learn
are
more,
actually from that book.
okay.
David
So
John
yeah, if you
Marley
want some more
wrote
context
that.
to where those quotes came from,
There you go.
go check out that memoir.
Yeah, I actually have that book. I was gifted it when Ryan is my best friend. I don't know if I mentioned him. He would murder me if I went on a podcast and didn't mention him one time.
Hi,
We went to,
Ryan.
hi Ryan. We went to Walt Disney's childhood home in Marceline, Missouri, and we went to the Walt Disney Museum. And
Nice.
Inez, who we now see when we go to D23, probably we'll see her this weekend. She gifted me the book because she was like, "You're a past skipper and you need to have this book."
Oh, so
And so I
sweet.
have a
So
little
I have
dedication.
endorsement. I love that.
Love Marceline.
Yeah.
We got to get Courtney to Marceline. I've been now, and Courtney, we got to get you there.
All right,
You
I'll
gotta
put it on
go.
my
It
bucket
is
list.
unlike any experience you will experience in your life, but you gotta go.
Thank you for going on this journey with us, and thank you to our listeners for sticking around through our summer series of Adventureland attractions. We still have plenty more fun in season 7 in store. Next month, we will be back with an author interview with Disney director and animator Steven Anderson about his upcoming book, Disney in Between: The Lost Years, 1966 to 1986. This Indiegogo campaign for the book details, quote, embark on an enthralling journey with Disney in Between, spanning the transformative era from Walt Disney's 1966 passing to the studio's triumphant resurgence in the vibrant mid-80s under the visionary stewardship of Roy E. Disney, Michael Eisner, Frank Wells, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, end quote. So this book uses exclusive interviews with filmmakers and animators to uncover the time that the Walt Disney Studios was trying to navigate the loss of Walt and balancing tradition with innovation. We are so excited to welcome Steven to the show. Information about this book will be linked in the show notes. In the meantime, you can keep up with Book of the Mouse Club on Instagram at Book of the Mouse, or email us with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. Please be sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening so others can find our podcast to read and listen along with us. You can keep up with me, Courtney, on Instagram at Great Gutsby.
And you can follow me, Emily, on Instagram at Emily_McD. And Allie, where's the best place for listeners to keep up with you and your podcast commentaries?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Ayrang, AYYRAANG. And then my the podcast that I do, D Commentaries, is just at D Commentaries. So it's DCOM and then commentaries, D Commentaries. And then I also run a TikTok for my best friend called My Roommate Ryan. He's everywhere. So if you're on TikTok, go follow us. You will barely see me and you'll only see him.
Very fun. We will be sure to include those in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I feel like to add some legitimacy to our discussion here.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting me and my
Authentic.
sweet couple months with the Jungle Cruise that mean the world to me.
They absolutely all count. I had a similar time frame at Space Mountain, so I get it. As our guest here, you get to take us out with a quote. So I would love to know what you've chosen for us.
Okay, it's really long, but I thought that it was appropriate. So on my first Disney college program, I blogged.
Ooh.
So I wrote, I am going to quote myself
I love
from
it.
my last day at the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, grab tissues now, everybody.
Yeah, it's a little long, but I already cut it down. So this is the end. My last day working in the jungle was pretty much like every other day in the jungle. I did get to watch Wishes on my last day, and that was really nice. I'm not really a crier. I don't really have emotions, but man, that last night was tough. I kept it together until my last boat. You could hear it in my voice the entire ride that I just wanted to burst into tears. Knowing I would never say these stupid, silly jokes again, knowing I would never see more than half of my coworkers again, knowing I don't get to make people laugh for a living anymore, knowing I would never wear this ugly potato sack of a costume that makes me look like a soccer mom, knowing I don't get to drive around the rivers of the world ever again. It was really hard for me to keep it together on my last boat. I started crying after I said my usual joke that I always ended my boats with. If you enjoyed my cruise, my name is Skipper Allie. If you didn't, then my name doesn't really matter much then, does it? And I lost it. It was a tough night, but being able to spend it with a great group of CPs who've become my best friends is more than a blessing. My experience at Jungle Cruise was way more than I could have asked for, and I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. Disney really does make dreams come true.
I love it. There we go. Skipper's Story Volume 3, ready to go. Close out the book with that. Close out the episode. Thank you so much for sharing that memory.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was an absolute joy.
Book of
the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.